training. First of all, I want to acknowledge traditional owners of the varied lands on which these workshops running. Pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And we do have a good spread around New Zealand, and it's wonderful. And there's such good vibes in New Zealand for understanding the Safe System Assessment Framework and understanding how we can apply the safe system philosophy. Thanks to Waka Kotahi for the support of this, and it's such a wonderful capability capacity building program that they're embarking on, and we're just thrilled to be a part of it. So we record the session that probably popped up on your screen, or you can see that. The reason we record the sessions is in case you miss a session, you can watch the recording. And also, if you want to just look back at an example or something that was said, you were able to jump to that in the recording and rewatch it. A little bit of a content warning in terms of road crash scenes. Nothing graphic is shown. It's just more there are some crashes, and we look at to try to work out how we can prevent those or prevent the severity of them in the future. So if that's something that could disturb you, just be warned. Well, Kathy, over to you to explain who you are and how people can interact with us.
Thank you, Ken. Yes, I'm Kathy Ducouris, and I'm the training manager here at Safe System Solutions, and I've been involved in road-related technical training for far too long now. So I'm the person in the background that makes it all happen. So if you have any troubles in terms of you can't make a session, you have some technical issues, any admin logistical requirements, shoot me an email, as many of you have done already, so thank you. During the session, everybody's just about worked it out that you can chat, so using the chat box, and you can chat to everyone, or you can chat to hosts and panelists only, which just means if you've got something secret to tell us, you can just tell Ken and I. I monitor the chat throughout the program, so Ken sticks to the presentation and to time. You can ask a question anonymously through the Q&A function if you'd like. And if you've got a burning desire to talk, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you and you can talk to us. So that's probably about it in terms of, if it all doesn't, if something's going wrong, shut down and restart. That's usually fixes 99% of problems, just from your friendly IT support person here.
Yeah, most people are pretty good with Zoom these days, so hopefully that all makes sense. But we do love you chatting behind the scenes and making comments on things you see, and asking those questions before we say, are there any questions? Because just the nature of this is that I say, are there any questions? And you start typing your question, and then I've moved on and it's sort of jumping around. So as you think of it, jot the question in. Kathy will filter those, and if I answer them in the presentation as we go, she won't feed that through. So yeah, keep the chat going behind the scenes. And this is me. Yeah, my name's Ken Beer, for those I don't know, Principal Engineer at Safe System Solutions, and before that with the Victorian Government, Vic Roads, for a long time, working in road safety engineering, a lot of the technical areas in road design, standards, guidelines, road safety auditing, and the like. So my QR code to my LinkedIn is there. I do use LinkedIn to sort of put out bits and pieces around road safety and keep connected with people. We put out safe system snippets as a company, which are just little bite-sized bits of information about the safe system and road safety. We have lots of those out there. So good way to keep across that, keep up with what's sort of the latest stuff going on around road safety engineering mainly. So yeah, connect with me, be good. But you've also got my contact details there, especially if you're not on LinkedIn. And anything in terms of the technical content of the course that you want more information about, you're confused about, get in contact with me. Shoot me an email, give me a call. We can organise a one-on-one catch-up if you're struggling to understand bits and pieces of it, or you just want to delve into things a bit more, we're more than happy to chat with you. So yeah, looking forward to that. We've also got a few of our other very experienced safe system assessors available if there's a big demand on that. Now, Kathy, we have a learning management system, and it's hosted by Moodle, but people don't see the word Moodle, do they, anymore? They see just Safe System Solutions.
Yes, absolutely. So it is the Safe System Solutions learning management system, which you have all either jumped on and checked out, or I have had a couple of emails saying you haven't quite got your login details. So it is where we house everything. So a recording of these sessions will be available to you a couple of hours after the live session. In there, the presentation slides, a whole host of resources is in there. There's some quizzes that you'll be asked to do at the end of each live webinar. So they're in there as well, and any other resources that we discover along the way, we pop in there. That's also where you will have a look at your assignment and submit your assignment as well. So any troubles with that one, just shout out to me.
Thanks, Kathy. And yeah, you absolutely need access to the learning management system to successfully complete this course. So if you haven't got in there, please do so. Now, we've got a few little tricks up our sleeve to try to keep you engaged in the content. The online learning environment presents some interesting challenges in terms of the temptation for people to be doing that project on the side and those emails and doing that roundabout design that you're a bit behind on, and sort of having us going in the background. Well, we do ask that you keep an eye on the slides, because Wally the Wombat appears a random number of times each module, and you'll be asked to keep track of how many times Wally appears and put that into, it'll be one of your quiz questions at the end of the session. So you'll have 9 quiz questions around the content of the module, and one of how many times did Wally appear. And that's what Wally the Wombat looks like, Wally the Wombat warning sign. And so just keep an eye out for those in the slides. That's not an official one, so your Wally count is 0 at the moment, but keep an eye out. And we also do give out prizes. I ask lots of questions of you, and the first one to answer correctly, if it's a question where there's a correct answer and the like. Also, if you ask great questions, if you put your hand up for the case studies where we ask you to talk us through one of your the intersections that you've looked at, they're all chances to win a prize. And also, Kathy loves running a trivia night, and so she does before session trivia. So if you log in 3 minutes early or so, you're a chance to win a prize there with some general trivia from Kathy. Could be road safety, could be general knowledge, could be anything really, couldn't it?
It could be, and I've got to keep it fresh because we've got some people that have been with us before, so on the hunt for some new trivia. Good.
That's it. Keep you on your toes. And how do we get the prizes to you? Well, those who have been to our other courses will know. You, at the end of the course, will get an electronic copy of your certificate if you successfully complete the course. But then a little bit later on, you'll get a hard copy in the post. And with that will come any prizes that you've collected along the way. So Kathy keeps a little ledger behind the scenes and keeps track of who's got prizes to come. And hopefully you got a little welcome pack in the post. If you haven't got that already, don't worry, there's nothing critical to the content of the course in there, just a little things to keep you nourished through the session. In terms of successful completion of the course, I mentioned that, and we do have some competency benchmarks and some requirements to hand over a successful completion certificate for this course. So attendance at 4 out of the 5 live webinars and viewing the one you missed. Now, if if you can't, we'd love you to be at all 5 live because you can ask questions, you can interact. But if you can't make one understandable, if more than one live you can't make, get in contact with Kathy and just have a chat about that. Shoot an email through to Kathy and we'll work that out. So we need you to complete all the quizzes, exercises, assignments, and everything like that. And we need you to get an 80% or better on the marking. And we do mark your assignments and your safe system assessment, and we provide you feedback. Now, if you don't get that 80% on your first go, well, you got another 2 goes at it at least. So you got 3 attempts. And as I mentioned before, you have available one-on-one coaching from myself or colleagues who will work with you until you understand that particular aspect you're struggling with. So I always say to Kathy, if anybody doesn't get this, as well as them failing, I've failed. So I don't want that to happen. So I'll work with you until you get up to that competency level in those specific aspects. Okay, Kathy, any admin, management, logistics things before I jump into some content?
No, we're all good. I'm just sorting out some people's LMS logins, but other than that, you're right to carry on. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Learning Management System, LMS. That's the acronym. It was there's like a breakfast bar thing, the LMS, I think, isn't it? Anyway, okay. Okay. So the first session is it's fairly high level philosophical look at the safe system, road safety, and the like. And it's to ensure that we're all on the same page with how we view this idea of the safe system and road safety and how we operate a transport network. Now, some of you are very experienced with the idea of the safe system, and this will be a bit of a refresh, but it'll also maybe give a slightly different lens to a few things. It'll contextualize things within the safe system assessment context in terms of the principles, the philosophy, and the like. Some of you will be a bit new to it, so but I'm going to start sort of from the start anyway. So we're going to go through the principles and elements of the safe system and how New Zealand sort of looks at this idea of the safe system. We'll jump into kinetic energy thresholds for different crash types. So important to safe system assessments to have a good understanding of that. We'll look at traditional ways road safety was, we looked at road safety, approached road safety and the safe system approach. We'll look at some best practice in terms of behavioural vehicle safety and the like. And that's because safe system assessments can and often do look beyond just the physical infrastructure and what's going on out there in our holistic system. And we'll talk about speed and why it's so critical to the safe system. There's a Wally. The Wally count is now 1 for those who are keeping track, which is all of you. And that's all the help I'll give you in Wallies, but that's the kind of thing you're looking for. Okay, let's start at a nice national strategy level. Road to Zero, the New Zealand road safety strategy there, 2020 to 2030, and really quite a progressive document. We've got a lot of world leading stuff in there in terms of the ideas, the actions, the way that New Zealand is looking at road safety. I picked out a couple of things of particular interest around this course, and they are the key performance indicators around percentage of people who have completed an approved safe system training course and showed improved understanding of the safe system. So that's good. And you're into that already. Well done. Percentage of road infrastructure, this is the next one. Percentage of road infrastructure projects that have been subject to a road safety audit and/or safe system assessment. So now we're seeing safe system assessments distinctly put in there as a key performance indicator alongside road safety auditing, which is I'll explain sort of some of the differences and some of the similarities between auditing and assessing, like safe system assessments and road safety audits. In fact, I mentioned safe system snippets before. We actually launched one this morning, which was a more comprehensive comparison between those two independent assessment methodologies of transport projects. So maybe Kathy, we can pop that into Moodle, into the learning management system. So those are two interesting ones. So good on you for jumping on board this and aligning beautifully with your national strategy and helping boost those key performance indicators within there. Now, the safe system. So Kathy, I'm going to give a prize out straight away to somebody, the person who gets the year, the New Zealand. It was New Zealand and Australia pretty much the same year. It was the same year. Formally adopted the safe system as the approach to addressing road safety at a national level. So it was general agreement. So have a guess at the year. Pop it into the chat. Nothing in here gets marked in the live session, so you're not going to lose any marks if you get it wrong. And you can freely have guesses, as I see some good guesses coming in. And yeah, put comments in and the like. And well, this is good. See anything in there you like, Kathy?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to closest without going over. Actually, it's closest, which is Kate, 2003. She's popped in there.
Yeah, okay, we're in the right territory there. Yeah, so 2004 is generally, there was still a lot of discussion around 2003, but 2004 is pretty much when Australia and New Zealand formally adopted the safe system approach. So nearly 20 years ago now, and now we've been ticking along and trying to get people engaged in the idea of the safe system and trying to get it on the ground in terms of practical decision making. And it's been quite a challenge, but we're really getting traction in these last 5 years, and many of you have been amazingly involved over that journey and been helping see this happen. So thank you and well done. But back then in 2004, this was the diagram that people were using as the safe system, and there was this fun sort of debate. Well, not fun, but it was it was interesting. And I was sitting on some Austroads working groups on this, and in the Victorian government, and working with people from New Zealand, sort of Colin Brodie, Fergus Tates, and those sorts of people who were around that time. And anyway, there was this. So the diagram was developed, and at the center of the diagram was human tolerance to physical force. Okay, how much force can humans take before they break? Biomechanics of injury, we sort of refer to that area. Okay, that's the middle of the safe system diagram. Then there was safer speeds, safer vehicles, safer roads and roadsides. Okay, and then that was pretty much it. The circle was drawn around that. That's the safe system. And we're going to do that, and we're going to use those levers, and we're going to create a system that is safe. And then some people said, hang on, haven't we forgotten the road users, the drivers, the people walking, people on bikes, motorbikes, bicycles? It's really like we have to have safe road users who don't make mistakes and don't do stupid things. And then there was this sort of divide of the industry. And there was a camp that was saying, yeah, that's critical. It's so critical to our transport system. And there was another camp that was saying, well, no, we are going to create a system that understands that humans are fallible, are going to make these mistakes, do stupid things, and will continue to do stupid things. And we need to create a system that acknowledges and manages and caters for those different errors and mistakes, doesn't condone them and doesn't encourage them, simply sets up a system around them so they don't result in death or serious injury. So I was in that camp of saying, humans, no, we as a species, we make mistakes all the time. I've made many mistakes already this morning, and I'll make many more for the rest of the day. They're minor, and hopefully they don't kill or seriously injure anybody. But out there on our road system, due to its inherent risk, sometimes they do. And the safe system is trying to sort of create a system where that doesn't happen. Anyway, the thing that then happened was to sort of get this through because of the pressures, the inclusion of this little bit in this square around there, alert and compliant road users, was popped into there back in 2004. And that, I feel, was a big failure because it just gives this incredible get out of any responsibility clause for the system designers. Now, I call all of you and me a system designer. I mean, we're involved in designing, managing, operating different parts of the system in one way or another. I mean, there's a lot of people involved in the system design. It's not just the road designers. It's the policymakers, the vehicle standards, regulators, all of these people. But as soon as we say, well, you've got to be alert and compliant to survive on the road system, it's not a road system for humans. Okay, if you have to be alert and compliant 100% of the time, it's not designed for humans, because humans can't do that. Okay, now machines can do that, and maybe in 50 years' time, that'll be the situation. But we've got a long way to go before that happens. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But then there were some other things that sort of feeding into the system. But yeah, after that early diagram, then all sorts of other diagrams started being produced, spin-offs of that, and trying to improve it and the like. And you probably see some ones you're somewhat familiar with. I think this is an old New Zealand one. This is a new New Zealand one. And let's talk to that new New Zealand one. And I actually do use this quite often as an example of best practice in different jurisdictions around Australia and around the world. Because there's a few specific elements to it. I love the wording. Such great wordsmiths who put this together. And I'll run through it briefly because I think you're quite. I think you've probably seen this. You probably understand the principles, but I'll be fairly brief on it. So you have this sort of vision in the centre of a New Zealand where no one is killed or seriously injured in road crashes. And the important thing on that, I think, is what's not said, which is that it doesn't say a New Zealand where there will be no road crashes. That's really important. So the safe system acknowledges there will be mistakes, there will be crashes, but we don't want anybody killed or seriously injured in those crashes. So it's about managing the energy within those crashes. Okay, then there are these sort of focus areas of the infrastructure and the speed, the vehicles, work-related road safety, which is one that not a lot of other jurisdictions, well, a lot of people following and copying New Zealand now since the release of this, which is which is a tribute to you all. Road user choices is in there as one of the things, and system management. And then the principles, which is what I really want to focus on. I mean, these are levers. These are levers to us achieving these principles, which is what we want. So we want to strengthen all parts of the road transport system. Design for human vulnerability. Okay, that's our human tolerance to physical force, kinetic energy management, biomechanics of injury, and we'll delve into that a bit. Shared responsibility for improving road safety. That's trying to say that system designers have a responsibility, industry has a responsibility, workplaces and individuals have a responsibility as well. One thing I do say on that though is this one is probably where debate still rages in terms of where you draw your lines of responsibility. The Swedes do this particularly best, in my opinion, which is to say, crash occurs, what went wrong? And if they look at what went wrong, and it was something, hugely inappropriate from the driver, for example, and they then go, why did our system let that happen? Let's feed it back in there and try and change the system. So they're not just saying, well, that's outside of what we can control. They're not taking responsibility. They just go, well, our system stuffed up, didn't it? How did that let that happen? Or how did that, end up resulting in what it resulted in? So really, that's nice, rounded system and continual improvement. Actions are grounded in evidence and evaluated. What a beautiful statement, because road safety is an area. I'm trying to think of other areas that are equivalent where, well, anyway, the public has amazingly solid opinions on what they believe will improve road safety. And often it's based on their experience, personal experience, be that, I went on a driver training course and I haven't crashed, so that's got to have been positive, or, I have driven that road and I found it safe, so, that's it. So the thing is, though, that's an individual's perception of something. And that is like as far away from a statistically significant sample as you could possibly get. Well, I suppose unless your study was of that person's opinion on things. But anyway, no, it's completely, like you cannot take anything from that in terms of managing the whole system for all of the community. No, what you have to do is look for evidence and evaluate things, look for evaluation, understand genuinely how these things work for the entire community. And it's a very hard thing as a road safety practitioner to step away from your personal experience on things and stand back and say, well, actually, the evidence is saying this. You do gather some insights and some assistance from your view on things and your perception on things, but just be aware that you really do need to be looking back for evidence. Road safety actions that support health, well-being, and livable places. So the reason I think this is brilliant is because it understands that road safety is not often a huge driver for change. It does happen sometimes, but there is a general apathy across New Zealand and across Australia and across the world, really, for road trauma. I mean, we are in the industry and we're pretty passionate about it. And we think that that's, everything. But a lot of the public are generally just have grown up with people dying on the road. They see it on the news every day or every second day. Somebody's been killed in a crash. It's just, what happens. It's just part of running a road system. And so to implement significant changes and restrictions sometimes on individuals, across, so things that will impact people's, ability to do stuff in the way they've been doing it for their entire life. They can't see why they have to do that for road safety. There seems to be a far better traction for health, well-being, livable places, and creating these. Safety is sort of embedded in that, but people seem to be far more willing to have that 30-kilometre-per-hour speed limit because of the health and well-being and the fact that people will be more active and be out there and be able to play and the like. Now, safety is sort of intertwined into that, but it's driven for all of these other benefits. So I think it's smart to try to coattail on that. We make safety a critical decision-making priority. So this is where safe system assessments are really sort of shine, because in the past it's been, using road safety audits or opinion-based things or or the like. The safe system assessment framework gives us a nice decision-making inputs. So decision makers can see something and immediately understand how well it aligns with safe system principles and whether more needs to be done. And we promote good choices but plan for mistakes. So that is absolute clear acknowledgement that we are designing for humans. So yes, we're going to try to get everybody to do the best they can and try to make them not make mistakes and not do inappropriate things. But we understand that some will, and we need to plan for, design for, and manage for those mistakes. I'll go through a little safety culture ladder here, and then I'll pause. Then I'll ask you all a question, and then I'll take any other questions that have come in. I want to jump out of roads because, as I said, we all grew up with roads around us and transport, and that's sort of instilled and solidified a way that we look at a transport system and we think about everything associated with it. And it'll be subconscious, and we won't be able to articulate a lot of why we think about these things in certain ways. But so if we jump out of that and we look at another industry completely that maybe some of you had some involvement in, but maybe not as much, but let's look at manufacturing, and we'll look at the production of widgets. And back in the day, it was a fairly open system. It had, workers come in and they were told how to use machines and told that it was dangerous, and this machine was dangerous, and these areas are dangerous, and the truck backs in here, so watch that. Kids would clean the machines, and people would have boozy lunches and come back in and continue working, and lots of that sort of stuff going on. But they were clearly sort of told about the dangers and the specifics of where the dangers were and all of those sort of things. And they were told, you have to protect yourself here. This is a dangerous environment. You've got to look after yourself. Safety is your responsibility. And that's what we call a pathological safety culture, where it's up to everybody to protect themselves in a high-risk environment. So you elevate up from that, you get into a reactive safety culture, which is where you identify issues and you sort of rectify them as they come along. So, the machine here rips off a few arms or crushes the kid. and the like, and they say, okay, well, we've got to do something. That's the third kid this year that's been killed by that machine. So, all right, we'll sort of put a guard on that machine, and in fact, we won't let the kids clean that. We'll actually get an adult to clean it. Yeah, that sort of thing. And then they address the other one where the truck's backed over some people, and okay, well, now maybe we have to actually put a gate up here so people can't. Then you get into this calculating safety culture mentality, which is to say, well, this is where the economists come into play, and they say, you know, if you do this series of safety improvements on the machines and the factory here, it's going to cost you, yes, £10,000, pounds back in these days, but you'll get £30,000 in return in more widgets produced because the machines won't be down as long, and you won't have to pay out money to these family of people that were killed and the like. And so it's a really good business decision to invest in safety. And so that's what we call the calculating safety culture. Then it evolves up from that to what we call a proactive safety culture. And this is safe system. And it's to say that you need a really high level of safety, okay, and you can produce widgets up to that level of safety, okay, and if it goes above that, you stop. You can't. If the risk goes above that, you stop, and it's a very high bar on the safety there. And then you need to continually invest in maintaining that level of proactive safety culture, not just in terms of the machines and the safety devices, but in terms of the culture and everything like that. So, of course, you've by now put this analogy to the road transport system, and you're thinking, okay, I wonder where we sit there. And interesting. I mean, a highly pathological safety culture for a lot of what we do. We know it's a high risk. We know death and serious injury is inevitable if incidents happen, and we tell people that it's highly dangerous and they should. The safety is their responsibility. You drive a car, safety is in your hands, and you walk. I don't think we're going to stop. We're not going to stop doing that probably, but when the fact is that our system is inherently dangerous and we do that, it's a pathological safety culture. We do play in the reactive space, and we do those black spot programs or the we get crash reduction studies, and particularly, trying to, okay, what's the issue here? Let's fix that. What's the issue here? Somebody runs through a give way sign, and there's kills a family, and you're looking, well, why did they do that? Was there a see-through effect and the like? And you really, fix that intersection up and change it, right? And then, there's another 1,000 of those on the New Zealand network with almost identical characteristics. So, then what do we'll wait for the next one, and then we go to that one and wait for the next one. Then there is calculating stuff going on, mass action programs that have been worked out in terms of that calculation. Lots of benefit cost ratio calculations going on, and business cases. Well, no, I don't think we can afford to do that. Those extra safety features on this project. There are proactive things happening though, and that's really good. And some of the first proactive stuff, I think, showing that we have this proactive safety culture potential in New Zealand is school speed zones. And this is the early school speed zones. I know you're in the middle of a new exciting school speed zone program, or you're just jumping into that now. But the reason I say that school speed zones sit in this proactive space is that they understand that they're not pathological. So the kids you can't just pat the kids on the back and say, well, safety is your responsibility, now cross that high-speed road. And it's not reactive because we're not waiting for kids to be killed before those speed zones are going in. And it's not calculating. Well, I mean, calculations were done, but the calculations would have told you not to do it under pretty much all economic review mechanisms. And I did this for a jurisdiction, and I often will say to well, let me explain what I'm talking about here. If you do the economic evaluation of school speed zones under traditional methodologies, what you have to do is say, what impact is the reduction in speed going to have on economic productivity? Okay. And the way that's worked out, and at the moment, the way it's worked out, there's probably lots of externalities not being accounted for properly, but is to say, well, vehicles go through here at a certain speed, and now we're going to make them go a little bit slower. And so it's going to, instead of taking them a minute to go through this school area, it's now going to take them a minute and 5 seconds. So you take that 5 seconds, right? You multiply it by the number of vehicles that go through there for the day, and then for the year during the times your school speed zone will be active, and you add all of those up to get this big sum of time. And then what you do is you multiply that time by the hourly average hourly economic return of a New Zealander, which is something like $88 an hour, an average return to the economy. And that then multiplies out to this massive sum of money of the impact of the reduced speed limits to the economy. Okay. So then what you do is you say, well, what benefit are we going to get economically? And for that, you need to put a dollar value on a kid's life. And you do that through your transport economics areas. And they put a dollar figure on a kid's life, and they say, well, we'll call a kid worth $5 million. And okay, well, how many kids are we actually going to save by implementing this? And you work that out, and you get a number. Okay, well, they go, well, we're going to save 2 kids over the next 5 years, or 3 kids, or 2 kids, so that's $10 million, and then you go and you divide those 2 and you get a benefit cost ratio, and it is hopeless, like so bad to invest in school speed zones from that economic analysis framework. It is just grotesque to do this. And this is where but see, the thing is, we find that grotesque to do when it's kids, but that same analysis happens out there on the public road network for the rest of the areas often, and it's just, yeah, okay, no, we don't have the BCR to add continuous barriers on this project, so we'll do it without. So we're making a decision that it's not worth it to save New Zealanders' lives. So you may say, if you're a pure economist, as many of you maybe are, that it doesn't mean BCR systems are wrong. It means you're putting the wrong dollar values on the benefit, and you should try to quantify the reasons we find things grotesque, like the kid stuff, and then integrate those into other things. So yeah, maybe that's right. But I often will sort of play that game with the business case people, and they go, oh, well, no, that BCR ticks under our threshold. And I go, oh, we're playing just in the BCR game. We've got 150 school speed zones, which we'd like to increase from 40 to 60, which gives us an economic return of this. And if we're playing that game, let's do it. And they go, oh no, politics and communities and all that. They get uncomfortable. But anyway, so that's sort of that example, I think, of where proactiveness is in there. And we're starting to see this more with really good, continuous barrier projects. As I keep mentioning, continuous barriers, but seeing these new motorways built, and you can be happy new motorways are being built, or you can be very angry because they're not good transport modes or whatever it is. I'm not going to have that debate now, but we're going to talk about the fact that if you're going to do it, and you can create an environment where you're going to pretty much eliminate run-off road and head-on death and serious injury by continuous barrier systems, that's proactive in the sense that you haven't waited, and the calculation probably didn't come out under the right traditional senses as highly positive from a benefit cost ratio perspective. But yeah, it was a worthwhile thing to do. Anyway, I've probably talked that analogy off the page enough, and I better ask you all to do something. And I wonder if we do have a little poll. Remember, you're not being marked on any of this. It's just to get you engaged. All right. So I've slightly altered the principles of the SAFE system we kind of talked about, but generically at a principle level, there's a few questions there, and you should be able to have a good guess at those, I think. The second one there is a question we haven't answered, or we haven't talked about, except for some of you I know I have talked to you about this question because you've come to the safety audit course or the different courses that I run. But that one's just to jump us to the next slide. So let's do that. And then I'll do a couple more slides. We'll have another little exercise, and I'll give you more time in the next one to have a break.
Okay, we'll just give it 5 more seconds if anyone's putting in their last answer. And wow, 100%. Thank you, everybody. So, yeah, you're there, Ken?
Yeah. Oh, am I on mute?
No.
Oh, my camera's off.
That's the one.
Talking to myself there. I was reading through some of the chat questions and comments, which are really good, talking about co-benefits and how we lever off those and the challenges of speed management on the rural road network, which I agree, Jeanette there, and we had a bit of a chat about that, Jeanette, at one point there. Yeah, absolutely. Challenging stuff. Let's have a look at those results. Okay, yeah, so aiming for no mistakes on a road network is not practical. I mean, we want to minimize and manage. That's what I talk about, minimize and manage mistakes, because we cannot eliminate mistake making until humans do not have any involvement in decision making in the act of moving around a transport system. And that's it's not within our lifetimes. Yeah, we're going to get a lot of more autonomy of the vehicles coming in, but I'll talk about that later. So well done. Most people are in there. And the speed Usain Bolt traveled, well, the answer is 44 kilometers an hour. So you're definitely in the range there, most people. And 34 is probably a good one to look at as well. But you've got to account for the fact that if you were doing back of envelope calculations, there was acceleration time and the like. Now, why on earth am I asking that question? Well, I'm just linking it back to biomechanics of injury. And I like to give that analogy of parking a car at the end of Usain Bolt's lane. And he runs down there at 44 kilometers an hour and bang, runs into that car. And you know, will he survive that? Well, the answer is yes. He's going to survive that. I mean, he's built to withstand that sort of force. Will any of us mere mortals survive that? We're less likely to. And certainly our grandparents are not going to survive that sort of force. But, you know, collecting that sort of information from crashes, this is where passenger vehicles strike pedestrians. And we know the collision speed generally around the 10, 20 to 30 kilometer per hour mark. The chance of it resulting in death is low. Around this 30 kilometers per hour mark, it really starts to kick up. It sort of really goes really bad really quickly. And then, you know, up around the 60, 70, it's fairly certain it's going to be a death to the pedestrian. Doesn't matter who it is. So Usain Bolt comes in up a little bit higher up there because of his stature. We evolved as humans to run into solid things the speed of our own legs, chasing a kiwi bird or whatever it was, and bashing into a tree. We survived that. That's what our structure is built for. When we propel ourselves or things at us faster than that, we need to work out how we manage the energy so it's not transferred directly to us. And we see, you know, this sort of stuff is what we're designed to withstand. He broke a couple of ribs, came back and won the gold medal. We should be able to have sort of some energy, some violence happen and recover to lead a normal, healthy life. If you go beyond that and you sustain long-term injuries, lifelong injuries or death, they're the areas that we have not managed energy properly. So we have this for a number of crash types. We have right angle crashes, T-bone style crashes, and the speed we're seeing for this one is the bullet vehicle speed. So that's the bullet vehicle, the one that does the damage. This is what we call a target vehicle. So bullet vehicle speed, you see around 30, 40, even 50 kilometers per hour. There's a good chance of survival for the occupant of the target vehicle, the driver's side in that strike or passenger side in that strike. Around that 50 kilometer per hour mark, it goes really bad really quickly. And the 70 kilometer per hour mark is where it goes really bad really quickly for head-on crashes. And that's a closing speed of 140. The actual energy of impact is, if you have the same massive vehicle and the same speed and they hit directly head on like that little diagram, it's the equivalent of sort of running into a brick wall at 70 kilometers an hour. There's actually a really good Mythbusters episode that does this, and I don't know if we can share that, Kathy. I think we had some trouble sharing a YouTube at one point, but we'll see if we can make that happen, because people do start to question that. They're like, no, hang on, isn't the force from the other vehicle going to be combined? I mean, you know, if one was a tiny little smart car and the other was like a B double, you know, massive truck coming in, yeah, then you're going to take the force of the other vehicle because you're going to get pushed back in your little smart car. And that's sort of the physics of it. But when you come to that stop, it's about the deceleration of the occupant of the vehicle going from 70 to 0. Anyway, we also have safe. I pop these little buttons to a topic like this. If there is a snippet, a little video, a little something available, there's a little bit more information on this sort of stuff in one of our snippets. So the PDF of the slides in the learning management system, you can get those, and you can just click on these and get a bit more as you go at any point. In a safe system assessment, we actually try to quantify on a scale of 0 to 4 how bad the crash is going to be. What's the severity of the incident going to be? And of course, when we're trying to predict incidents in the road environment before they happen, or in a design and say, well, when they build that, this crash could happen. And we've got to try to then analyze, well, how bad is that going to be? Is that going to just be a minor side swipe scrape, or are we talking about something that could, it could kill or seriously injure people? So this diagram we created to try to make that scoring a little bit easier. And there's a whole lot of different crash types here. There's not, this isn't all crash types, but it's you see different road users interacting. You see different types of crashes, side impact, head-ons. And then you see the speed of impact of the bullet vehicle. Often there's 2 bullet vehicles, a bullet and a target vehicle. So you might say side impact, heavy vehicle versus car. So we've got something larger with more mass coming through. And depending on the speed, it'll be, if it's happening at 80 kilometers an hour, we know we're in the range of death there, the black, death, serious injury for sure. But if we're able to get those speeds down, and that sort of stuff is happening at 30 kilometers per hour, we're not saying death or serious injury can't happen, it's less likely to happen, and then so that scoring is. Now this diagram's a little bugbear of mine in road safety. It's been around a long time, and it's often discovered by people who come new to road safety and think that this is the philosophy, this is the way we need to be thinking about things. And it's the diagram is based on crash causation studies. So this is a particular crash causation study that Kimbler did, and that was on driver error. Okay, so there's been many other ones. We call this road user error. And what they always come out with is when they do root cause analysis and they really dig into why are these, what's the cause of this, causation, all of that, these amazing research diagrams and things going all everywhere. And what they discover from many thousands of crashes analyzed in this methodology is that about 90%, I think this one had 94%, but we can call it 90% of crashes is road user error. Is the root cause, the cause of that crash. There's a small percentage that's the vehicle, a bit overlaps, a little bit bigger with the road and more overlap there. But what then happens, I don't disagree at all with any of this research because it's brilliant. These people are amazing researchers and they're really good studies. What I disagree with is how people then use this. And people get this and they go, oh my God, 90% road user error. Well, let's concentrate on addressing that road user error. Okay, and that is the logical sort of reaction because, look for the biggest problem and try to address it. But that's what we've been trying to do. And it just sticks there at that 90%, like, it just always is 90%. Now, what we need to do is say, okay, it appears road user error is part of being human. Okay, let's look at this at a system level and say, okay, we've had a system failure. Now, what can we do to alter the system to either stop that crash happening or to manage the energy so it doesn't result in death or serious injury? Now, Austroads came up with this one, interestingly, put driver excess outside and driver inexperience outside the system, or part of it. I think that that's a short-term view of the safe system. I think those should be in. I can understand why they did it, because I really think those two, especially, need to be addressed very differently to the way we look at road safety at the moment. I think we can, for the bulk of crashes on the New Zealand road network, understand we can change the road environment, the speeds, the vehicles, and pretty much eliminate death and serious injury as a result of most of that. The driver excess, and especially, and the driver inexperience less so, I think are societal challenges that are very, I mean, road safety is one byproduct of many challenges associated with that, and it needs a real social response rather than sort of our traditional, well, not traditional response, but our sort of safe system way of operating at the moment. But anyway, regardless, the idea is that when people find this diagram, and amazingly, like ministers will find it, or you know, the new head of road safety for New Zealand, you know, who's come from a completely different background, as you know, sort of these sort of things happen, because, you know, they go, oh, the manager's a, you know, good manager regardless, and then that's sometimes the case. But then they delve into the actual, and they'll go, well, you know, this is it. Why? Okay, we've got to address this. We've got to pump more into, you know, driver training and driver this and and the like. And that response isn't going to get us to where we need to be. Now, failures, well, road user error, what I'm talking about there, comes in all sorts of forms: slips, lapses, mistakes, unintentional violations. I'm not going to go into each of those and explain the slight nuances and differences. But to a degree, deliberate violators being those who are, you know, really doing extreme things out there, driving you know, really high speeds through areas, or incredibly drug affected drivers and the like. They represent probably 30, well, there's a Centre for Automotive Safety Research report that sort of tries to give us some answers on that. But just as a little rule of thumb, you can know about 30-70 on this. So it's a significant problem, don't get me wrong. And as I said, we need some pretty, you know, we need some responses to that. I think we need innovation, we need new ways completely of thinking about it and all. But we've got a lot we can do within this space already, which are generally people trying to do the right thing, going about their business generally, and you know, falling asleep or missing something or being confused by something, being distracted by something, these sort of things. Where they exactly drew the line, you have to read the 300-page report to work that out. But the media, I suppose, portrays often a different story. And I think the New Zealand media is doing a better job at it these days, but still that story of that highly inappropriate behaviour makes juicy news. And that's what a lot of the public think, that this is where our road safety, all of our death and serious injury is coming from. Anyway. Okay, why don't we do a little exercise? I'll give you a good 4 or 5 minutes here. You can have a stretch and you can fill up your water And what we're going to do is put up another poll, and we're just going to ask you to have a think about traditional approaches to road safety and where we're going with the safe system way of thinking. Now, some of these could go to multiple ones, but, from victim blaming, are we going to maximising safe mobility, or are we going to effort to create a forgiving system, or where is it? So we'll put up a little poll for you to be able to do that in an automated fashion. Some of them could go to many, so don't get too stressed about it. Just try and utilize this as a way of consolidating your thinking. We'll come back in 4 minutes. Stop. We're going to jump back into it. Just looking there, somebody's made a great comment there, Kathy, in the chat, that there's a slight disconnect between the wording of our poll versus the wording of the screen on the multifaceted system option versus the 4 pillars optimized jointly as an interaction, because and that is a very good spot. So 4 pillars used to be a thing New Zealand sort of operated under, but now you've moved away from that idea of pillars and to this multifaceted system, which is absolutely spot on. So I changed that in the slide, and it looks like it didn't make it to the poll. My bad. So let's give a prize to, is it Reese? I'm not sure. It's a username there, so I'll let Kathy work that out. Good. Okay, let's end the poll, and let's have a look here at results. So we've got a little bit of, as I said, some people have gone slightly different ways due to the fact that you could go on multiple ways on a few of these. So all good, don't get too concerned. I like the fact that you did some head scratching and thinking about this. So I'm going to do it on screen instead of, I'm going to stop sharing that. Instead of going through the poll results, it's a bit hard to read. This is the way that this was done out of an Austroads sort of report. So I'll run with theirs. As I say, I would be happy with some other options as well. Victim blaming, to recognizing human error and minimizing its consequence and that shared responsibility. So emphasis on road user education and compliance. This really could have gone to a few of them, but more now to that effort to create a forgiving system. Not ignoring education and compliance, but just more recognition that still mistakes will happen. Crash reduction now to this enhanced focus on consequence and severe injury minimization rather than stopping all crashes. It's more stopping as many crashes as we can, minimizing the injury. The 4 pillars now to the multifaceted system with interacting elements optimized jointly as an interaction. What a mouthful that is. Maybe that's why we didn't put it into the poll, but yeah, it is that recognition that these are very interactive, multifaceted elements. And mobility safety balance to maximizing safe mobility. So as many widgets produced as can be done safely, rather than let's find that nice balance between killing and seriously injuring our community and getting mobility up as much as we can. So Ian Cameron, who's a Western Australian, made a nice statement. I thought I'd put it in there. We need a paradigm shift in road safety policy to stop the road death epidemic, and we need it now. It is unrealistic to expect that education and enforcement alone will bring the needed step change. Even road users who know and follow the rules make mistakes. Safe system creates an environment in which simple mistakes will no longer kill people. Kill or seriously injure people, I should be, but yeah, I think good statement. All right, let's jump into some infrastructure, and I'll get you doing something else as well now. But here we go. We've got a road that has a wire rope safety barrier in a narrow flush median there. It's a fit, so the time the photo was taken, certainly it's a fairly new installation. And we hadn't had much of this this is in Victoria. You certainly in New Zealand had the Centennial Highway there, which was one done well before this, but you're starting to, think about rolling out a lot more of this, and here's a bit more of it that we're seeing. So without knowing much, or if anything, about this project, apart from what you can see, I want you to pop into the chat things you think that significantly hampered getting this project delivered. And that's all the way from the planning phase. Planning issues, design issues, funding issues, and the like. So what caused this project to be particularly challenging? So just pop a few into the chat. I'll give out a few prizes as they come in for different ones. Wow. Okay. Okay. This group's great. This group obviously has, or maybe tried to put some of these in and faced some of these challenges. Okay. So let's just run through a few of them. Justifying BCR was an interesting one that was put in there, and that was certainly a big challenge, because a lot of people who just wanted to put a wide centre line or the like, and you couldn't see why wasn't enough death and serious injury to warrant that, and those sorts of things. So that's a good one. Challenges with different land acquisition, native vegetation, barrier height is an interesting one that was put in there. So this is actually at the terminal, so they look very short, and it ramps up. Good spotting there. Earthworks, passing lanes. So the fact that the overtaking opportunities are now only on one side, you can't cross the centre line to overtake. I'm not going to get through these all, because there are so many good ones. So the comms, objections due to a whole lot of different reasons. Property access being a really good one there, was a challenge. Motorcyclists, oh yes, definitely, yes, the old cheese cutter in the middle of the road. I'll talk about motorcyclists in our third module, and I'll talk particularly to motorcyclists and wire rope safety barriers, although New Zealand's got a wonderful fact sheet on that and the actual science and evidence behind it, rather than just opinions and motorcycle lobby groups. And I think that's a pretty good thing. So public, different thing, turnaround areas, maintenance concerns. Maintenance, okay. Jeanette there can have a prize for maintenance concerns. This one I didn't expect in this project, and that the maintenance crews were very against the barrier system in their ability to maintain the existing road. So they've got potholes or whatever, they can't contraflow, they can't move people around. And also the fact that they go, well, it's going to get hit and we're going to have to maintain it, and all of those sorts of challenges. So that was definitely one that had to be worked through. wow, they just keep coming. Emergency response, I think that Bianca can have a prize there for emergency response, because that again was one that I suppose wasn't as predicted as the way it played out, with the ability to get to the bushland if it's on fire, the other side of the road, and ability to pull the car over safely, ability to use the radar gun because the metal objects in the middle of the road, so something coming the other way, you can't radar. And so there's some practical challenges with that. I think, almost everybody could have had a prize there, because they're all very good comments, and they're all things that needed to be worked through. But why did I sort of bring this up? Well, the thing is that to change the way we design, manage, and operate the road system is going to come up with, against lots and lots of challenges, because it's different, it's new. People don't like to change. They've been designing roads for 30 years, and now you're telling them to do it differently. It's so lots of issues and risks as such will come up and be presented, and they're always going to look like reason to stop the project. But what we have to do is recognize the benefits of the project, and we need to work through those issues and try to minimize those risks and work out ways that we can do those things safely. And the challenge we've had in the past is that our road safety check on these types of projects has traditionally been a road safety audit. And road safety audits are great, and I promote road safety auditing. I run road safety audit training. I do road safety audits, and they're really valuable, and they continue to be valuable. But what they are there to do is identify risks with this project. And you've mentioned some of them really well there. You might mention, the fact that the barrier will probably deflect into the oncoming lane a bit. If struck, it'll probably deflect in there if the angle's enough. It'll identify all of these issues. There is no reporting of benefits of the road safety treatment from the road safety audit. That's not their job. Okay. However, a safe system assessment will quantify and report on the road safety advantages of this. And that's huge in the sense that it really gives you the ability to say, this is going to save huge amounts of lives. Okay, and we've got to deal with these risks, these smaller issues in terms of death and serious injury that are coming up. Now, I don't say smaller in terms of to belittle them. I say they need to be respectfully worked through. But they just need to be worked through rather than stopping the whole project where we're going to get this massive benefit. Anyway, obviously that one went in, and then of course it did get hit. And interesting, this one, the regional engineer got a phone call, and the person was, I talked to the person responsible for putting that barrier in the middle of the road, and as many of you have been that regional engineer or council engineer, and you think you're going to get shouted at, but they the person just wanted to thank them and say that, well, I've been driving that road for my life and my whole life, and this time a car came directly at me, and the barrier was there, and they slid along the barrier, and I just want to thank you for doing what you do. And that's pretty amazing thing. You probably work your whole career in road safety infrastructure and never get that call, but that's not why we're doing it, obviously. But that engineer in that region was smart enough to get the comms people quickly and get the person's details, and then out they went, and they made a nice little 2-minute video, which we have put into the learning management system. And I really do encourage you to watch it, because to me, it's safe system in action. It is just absolute natural human error by normal people. We fell asleep at the wheel. They're not a bad person, but they just made that mistake and they fell asleep. And if the barrier wasn't there, we would be pointing fingers and blaming, and the police would have done a report. It would have said, not in control of the vehicle, fell asleep, should have rested, shouldn't have driven in that state, and all of that sort of stuff. And that would have been the end of it. But the barrier system intervened. It meant that there was a crash, but nobody was killed or seriously injured. Anyway, I think it's good. Watch the video. I share it around often. Okay, I want to just jump through a few of these principles or the levers very quickly. I'm not going to dwell on any of them. I think we've had a good philosophical discussion here, but Kathy, do jump in if there's any questions that come up as I'm ticking along. I want to talk about road users. I may be giving the impression that we're abandoning anything to try to get better road use by drivers, motorcyclists, pedestrians, cyclists, everybody. It's not the case. It's just recognizing the limitations of what we can do in that space. But we do know that education, encouragement, enforcement, and a licensing system and an entry and an ability to get out there do improve road safety, have improvements, and they need to be continued and maintained. And we can do more in these areas. Just that real recognition is not the savior here. Okay, it's a part. Education, especially good, obviously, to our little humans, our kids. They are very, it's not road safety specific, and no prizes for this either. Yes, kids take on information really well, and they can feed it back to their parents, which is really, really good. And they can tell their parents to put their seatbelt on, and they can tell their parents not to, question they saw them drinking and why you're driving. That's a pretty powerful thing if you play it right. Young drivers are highly at risk, and we know that, and we see the best road safety benefits from giving them many hours on the public road network with a supervising driver to understand where risks present in the network and just the basic driving skills. Anything involving high speed skid training, how to get out of skids, how to do high speed braking maneuvers and the like, increases their risk of death or serious injury significantly. And it's probably one of the world's best researched road safety things. So advanced driver training courses increase death and serious injury. And that's counterintuitive, and the public won't believe it because the obvious thing is, I'm worried about my kids' safety. I'm going to give them better skills to get out of these issues. But the problem is that they come out of those courses overconfident, take more risks, and the tiny little bit of improvement that they have in these scenarios is just absolutely swamped by the increased risk taking and as a result, increased crashes they can't do anything about. There are sort of, I suppose, defensive driving courses out there that are, I haven't seen evaluations that particularly show that they're highly beneficial, but they are certainly not in the same realm, but because they're very different from that advanced skill set driver training, high speed style stuff. I'm not against those ones, and I know New Zealand has a process of defensive driving, which I think is fine. There's really interesting thing in trying to convince the public to improve their road safety behaviour. And one really important takeaway message is that it's very hard to convince an individual of their risk of being involved in death or serious injury in a road crash. This one, take for example, is the person using their mobile phone. And if you were to say to this guy, hey, if you use your mobile phone, you'll be involved in a crash and you could be killed or seriously injured. His response will be, nah, not me. I mean, I'm doing it safe. I've been doing it for 10 years and I haven't crashed, and that doesn't make sense. And to a degree, he's not wrong, because his personal risk of being involved in a crash to death or serious injury as a result of mobile phone use is minuscule. Okay, his risk of being involved in a minor rear ender or something like that is bigger, but absolutely minuscule for death and serious injury for him as an individual. But if we take up all of the people in New Zealand that use their mobile phone while they're driving, and we add all those minuscule increases in risk, at a collective level for society, this is a big issue, right? But what we often will do in road safety is talk to the public through advertising campaigns or whatever it is, or just road safety comms or talking about your project comms. Talk to the collective in our voice about the collective risk, and they hear it as an individual, and they don't believe it. And speed limits is an absolute classic for this, where we sometimes go out to the community and say, well, we're reducing the speed on this road from 100 kilometers an hour to 80 for your safety. They're just like, what? I've been driving this road for 30 years and I've never had a crash, and it's only those people who don't know how to drive and then all of that sort of stuff. It just doesn't resonate. It doesn't work. So what you've got to do is look for levers of other things to talk to them about that actually make sense to them. And I love this ad, and you've already figured it out by now, but it's saying if you text and drive, your kids will text and drive. That's just an absolute hook, a lever that people won't text and drive then if they've got this in their mind with the kids in the car. At least they might do it when the kids aren't there, but we're getting progress. Speed limits, I mean, far more traction for speed limits, as I talked about, active transport and all of those sort of things, but protection of wildlife is more powerful. There's been some studies on this, more powerful than saving humans' lives is saving animals' lives. That's why their speed has been reduced. That comes into a bit of, the animals don't know, and you can't control that. So there's really interesting ways of doing that. Fuel consumption's down, lower. We're reducing the speed from 100 to 80 because New Zealand is committed to doing their part in climate change, and we know that there's less emissions at these speeds. Fair segment of your community will take that on. In fact, that's how a lot of European countries got in some of the wholesale speed reduction regimes, which is pretty cool. Anyway, keeping on. So what seems to work is like this whole school approach. Integrating road safety into the school curriculum is really great, and combining it with other partner activities, be that police or be that other infrastructure things. Support for community education. So highly motivated people in the community, often for road safety, champions out there, and we need to help them do evidence-based things rather than what their opinion on what might work, like taking them to the trauma ward, taking like the year 12 or the grade 12s to the trauma ward to see what could happen if they don't drive safely. We know that doesn't work. We know that just there's a lot of evidence to show that is not an effective road safety intervention. It traumatizes certain portions of kids. It's more influential on the lowest risk portion of them, and the majority of them sort of block the whole thing out in their mind. It just doesn't work. So, we've got to feed that, because that's, again, one that is a real community response. They're like, we want to do something about it. That makes sense. They need to know the consequences that could happen. No, there's better ways we can do this. Graduated licensing, that's just having lots of restrictions as people start driving and easing off restrictions over time. And education targeting especially motivated groups, or parents being the most motivated groups. And action programs. I'll talk about that one a little bit later on. Yeah, Kathy, anything popping up there? I'm seeing a few little flashes on the screen.
Excellent discussion happening on the side. Everyone's on the same page. People advocating for the driver training courses in New Zealand. A former supercar driver that people question their driving ability on the public roads. The Bianca mentioned the idea of, I'm not a bad driver, everyone else is. So yeah, that's the problem with everyone else, not me. I don't think she really means that herself, but maybe we all do. The individual versus the collective is massive. Getting people to consider the collective benefit is a great challenge for us to overcome. Yeah. And Jeff sums it up with, people are vulnerable, but also selfish. Yes, I know, Bianca, you are the best driver. No.
Okay. Yeah, so this is all, it's great discussion. Please, keep that discussion going. In terms of what doesn't work, and I've covered off some of these, but fear tactics and that, take it through the morgue or really graphic things, we know that doesn't work. Graphic TV ads really scaring the public and the like doesn't change behaviour as such. What it does, though, is sets a platform for legislative change if you're going down that track. So I'm not absolutely against fear tactic ads, but don't think that that's the behavioural change mechanism. That's your ability to legislate and getting public support behind legislation. We know skill-based bio training doesn't work. We just went through that. One-off events. Driver simulator is an interesting one. I think there's potential there. I'm just waiting for evidence around this. I know some early driver simulators were evaluated and not successful at all. I think there's many generations. So I suppose I'll put a question mark next to that. And I'll happily welcome any research evidence around benefits. There's possibility there. Any membership at car racing, go-karting clubs, again, it's like skill-based driver training. It's just they come out more confident, take more risks on the public road network, and just informing of the amount of people killed or seriously injured. Like, say, on a road stretch, if you say, well, you're going into State Highway 1 in this section and, 10 people have been killed in this next 50 kilometres in the last 5 years, that doesn't influence people's behaviour. And interestingly, somebody said there, the supercar driver, being the, advanced driver training, and if everybody was like that supercar driver, we wouldn't have the road trauma we have. Well, I do like to show this evaluation and research that was done, which shows learner drivers. So these are drivers who have no experience, and they're there with the supervising driver. They are driving the car. P-platers are the ones out there by themselves. This is out of New South Wales data, I think, or either New South Wales or Victorian data, I forget. And so they've got some restrictions on them, and then they ease the restrictions and then full license. These are the crashes. So these are the crashes in that portion. This is actually both. So these are raw crash numbers, but it's a similar trend when you do it with crashes per vehicle kilometres traveled. So, an exposure overlay as well. So we know immediately that it jumps up like astronomically there. And then it goes down kind of as people get older and more mature and less risk taking and less crazy and the like. But it never gets down to as safe as somebody who's got no experience. Like, so the idea that somebody who's, you know, the supercar driver is the answer, you go, actually, the answer is somebody with no experience. The answer is, yeah. Well, it's not the full answer, but it's a great answer, as long as they got a supervising driver next to them. They don't take the risks. They don't, you know, drive under different intoxications. They don't, you know, there's a whole lot in that. Yes, we've got all the surrounding system and the road infrastructure and the vehicles and everything that we've got to work on. But I'd always use this to dispel that supercar driver when people say that. Hey, really? Is that right? It's all about skills, is it? Encouragement. I'm not going to spend long on this, but it's interesting that you know, you can encourage people to drive safely through incentivizing schemes such as paying people to drive safely. Give them a free license renewal if they have no demerit points or the like. Seems to have some traction, some effect on behaviour. I think insurance companies will leverage this beautifully into the future, where you'll just essentially have a device in your car that will monitor your driving, and your insurance premiums will be issued accordingly, which just makes sense. I mean, you've probably got one of those in your car already that you don't know about, and the insurance companies may or may not be accessing that data already, which is your phone. So if you're onto one of those, well, you know, they do that. On a tangent, they're so advanced, the insurance companies, when there's that commercial element. I mean, by postcode, by you know, a few demographics of you, and they peg you for your risk and your allocated insurance premiums accordingly. The specific behavior is what you should be advertising and marketing. So, you know, rest every 2 hours, or you know, take a 15-minute power nap every 3 hours, or whatever you're going to say, rather than drive safely on long journeys, or don't drive tired. Well, you know, what is the specifics? What is the action? And New Zealand, you know, understood very early on that comedy in recall in road safety messages resonates best with our young male drivers, who are our big major customer. And you've done the best road safety ads in the world, in my opinion. So I need to be telling all of you this, but we did put some into the learning management system, so you can rewatch them and see how us Australians have copied all your ads and reproduced them with different brands on them. The changing a culture is where we're moving towards. And it's really interesting to see things like advertising that starts talking about system changes. It talks about, here's one, let the South Australian government stole your ad. Other people make mistakes. This isn't a comical one, by the way. This is a very powerful one. Other people make mistakes. Now we're talking about safe system. Other people, not you, it's other people. Victoria has Graham. I don't know if some of you have met Graham. Graham is a life-size sculpture who's scarily real looking, and is the only human designed to survive the forces on our road network. And it's about taking kids through to look at Graham. You know, he's interactive. You can hold an iPad up and see inside into his skeletal structure and all these things. But there, you know, it's really about this. And then there's a whole program of physics around this, and what can we change on the road network so Graham wouldn't have to look like this, and forces and speeds and speed limits and crossing points and barriers and all of that. So it's real change the culture and get in there and try and convince, you know, convince kids or get kids to understand that the system we've got is not good, and we need to change that. Enforcement is a nice underpinning, supporting part of the system. And we want a strategic enforcement effort with specific and general deterrence and visual presence. I can give you more information on any of these. I've got to keep moving along. Automated enforcement is really going to be taking off. Point-to-point speed cameras, red light cameras, all of that. It's the way of the future. Elegant enforcement techniques such as alcohol interlocks are great, because if you people are a recidivist drink driver and you take their car off them and you take their license off them and you give them fines that they will never have the ability to pay, you're spiraling their lives further out of control. They can't go to their job, they can't pick up their kids. It's not a good societal, social model for enforcement. What is better is if you can address the specific risk-taking activity with, say, an alcohol interlock, and make sure that when they're driving, they are not intoxicated. And you can do that with speed if we wanted to, and all sorts of other things. There's my Vic Roads car 16 years ago with a intelligent speed assist device telling me what speed zone I was in, and it beeping at me if I went over the speed limit. And we could have set it up to intervene, but it was centrally monitored. Easy. Technology, not the problem. It's political will and the desire to actually see speeding for what it is. And the vehicles. The vehicles are going to put us all out of a job, but probably not in our lifetime, unfortunately. The time it takes to turn over a fleet is huge. So even, if we happen to have existing a vehicle that could navigate the network by itself, which we don't, by the way, it would still take 25 years for us to, get that actually out there for everybody. And we don't have that technology. We've got it so it can, maybe go on a bit of a motorway by itself. You don't have to touch the steering wheel and, potter around bits of beachfront and those sorts of things. But we're quite far from it. But what we do see is this integration of more and more technology, more and more safety features coming along, bringing us along, getting more automation and the like. So we're seeing some pretty good stuff, and we've got lots of incentivizing campaigns, and we're integrating pedestrian safety into that. So it's all really good. But as I say, this vehicle with no steering wheel is a long way off. To sit on our hands as predominantly road infrastructure managers and designers and all, I can say, well, the vehicles will solve all this mess, it's 30, 40 years before we're starting to see this really saturate. And we know that, as I said, we're going to get benefits. So vehicles are starting to, brake by themselves in incidents, take over in incidents. There's a good one where the vehicle sort of brakes and it hits at lower severity. And so I think that's a win, even though the leg fell off. But the car did brake, it lowered the energy. We had still a crash, but with intolerable levels. And that's what I think we'll be seeing some wonderful advantages of. I'll just do speed and then take questions, and then and I think there's a few things coming in. So just a reminder that speed, well, I've got a few reminders about speed. Travel speed and crash severity are not a linear relationship. So I think the easiest way for me to explain this is that let's go imagine a car traveling along at 60 kilometers an hour and a pedestrian steps out 45 meters away, and they react, process that information, then hit the brake, and they just touch at 45 meters away at 60 kilometers an hour. Let's imagine them going 10 kilometers per hour more. 70, same situation. And they hit at 46 kilometers an hour. Not 10 kilometers an hour more, 46. So we've not got that linear relationship. And in fact, it's a power relationship for fatal, the fourth power relationship, and a third power relationship for serious injury. It's actually a second power relationship for all injuries, all other injuries. But don't worry if you don't remember power relationships from your maths class. It's essentially saying that small increases in speed have the most impact on the highest severity trauma, and they are actually quite significant for small changes in speed. So if you can wash a few kilometers per hour off, you can see some significant benefits in fatal and serious and the like. And we had a good bit of a chat there already about speed limits. But this question, I mean, this is sort of, there's lots of awesome research out there on public opinion of speed limits, and New Zealand's doing some pretty cool stuff in this space. But telling people, ask the question, lowering the current speed limit would reduce crashes on the road. Well, half the population, well, this is actually Tasmanians, but it tends to be pretty much the same across Australia and New Zealand. Half the population don't believe that. There's an absolute mountain of worldwide evidence to say that it will, but anyway. When you talk to them about the severity of crashes, lowering the current speed limit would reduce the severity of injury when a crash occurs. We got more people, so we've got some traction there. So that's interesting to know. They just don't think that they're going to crash or anybody will crash as a result of this change in speed limit. I was updating the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 3, which is speed and speed management recently, and I put in this diagram, which is a European thing, but it's basically saying whatever vehicles you have, whatever road user you have, and whatever your road user is sort of doing, intoxicated or the like or whatever, if you can manage to get them to a safe travel speed, you've got a safe transport network. It is that important a filter. I mean, it's very hard to do that without utilizing these elements, but think about it in that way. Speed is critical. You got to understand the biomechanics of humans. And we can influence speed through the infrastructure and all the speed limits. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about speed limits, but the infrastructure is an important way to be able to do that as well. Explaining why speed limits in place can be very effective in increasing acceptance, and we talked about vulnerable road users being quite good there. It makes it hard for the regional and rural roads. Agree to utilise that. And I think variable speed limits are going to be playing more and more a role where we can vary it based on particular points of risk or times of risk, and New Zealand sort of paved the way there with the RIORs, the rural intersection activated warning signs. Activated, must be that, but speed signs. They changed the speed limit on the main carriageway, the bullet vehicles, when there's a side road traction. Kathy, before I jump into this one, just check with the great chat we're seeing behind the scenes.
Yes, Ken, sorry. Now, what we have is earlier when you were talking about the things that work, there's some insurance companies that have the option to install a black box to monitor your driving. There's an app in the UK for safe driving apps to get lower insurance, which is compulsory. People loved Graham and his feet. And what would, I guess, interesting, what would the maximum speed of a car, as in your automated driving type car, be?
what a great question. I don't actually know. I mean, this has been like a never-ending battle in road safety. So why on earth are we letting vehicles go speeds that they could go out on the public road network? I mean, it's insane. Why would you ever let you're just tempting fate, aren't you? And so, and that's complex, and that's, multinational, multi-trillion-dollar companies probably fighting that because they can sell more cars and these sort of things. But I agree with the sort of sentiment of that. I don't have good answers.
In regards to speed limits, in New Zealand, it's quite difficult to process, quite a difficult process to change speed limits. Lengthy public consultation, and then when proposing to lower the limit in an area, locals often favour, but I think the pollies realise the kickback from the likes of courier drivers, etc.
Yeah, so 2 quick points on that. Agree, and you need to be crafty with your consultation. Not crafty in a bad way, but just think about it properly. And I suggest engage some of those amazing marketers that can sell things that you just would think are unsellable, like cigarettes and bottled water and these sort of things. You're just like, wow, you managed to sell that stuff? Good on you. Okay. You can now take speed limits and try to convince people, and they'll come up with amazing ways to do it. But I mean, I think that the Swedish example of just ripping the Band-Aid off with one rip and putting their rural default to 70 kilometres per hour, and then saying, but we will raise the speed of roads that are appropriate was a beauty. And they had that fight once, and they put lots of resources into it. So that's a good one. I think New Zealand may be starting to get into a point where that could be done under the climate change and the like, sort of appropriateness of that.
Have been some comments saying the process has recently changed in New Zealand, like last week even. So yeah, there might be something in that.
Yeah. Okay, I better keep going.
We've got 2 minutes, Ken. So we might save a couple of these questions for the next session as well. Good discussion.
All right, this will take me 1 minute, and it's risk is likelihood times consequence. But under a safe system assessment, it's actually exposure times likelihood times consequence. And I'll delve into this in a lot more detail. But that's how many people are exposed to the crash. What is the chance that crash happens, and how bad will it be? And we'll look at things like, well, let's stop people actually being exposed to the crash by blocking off points of risk or separating road users. Lots of ways we can reduce the likelihood with wide centre lines, good line marking, lighting, guideposts, sealed shoulders and the like, or even traffic signals. And the severity is about biomechanics of injury and speed and physics. And what's the speed that the crash will happen? Can we slow conflict points down? Can we change the angle of conflict points? Can we redirect the energy along and dissipate it over time rather than abrupt stops at trees and culverts? But that's where we'll pick it up next week. Kathy, everybody is going to have to do a quiz, so they'll find that in module 1. We're right on time here, but this is good. Kathy, there it is. Straight down to module 1. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Have a play around, have a look. There's your quiz. Do your quiz. Log in a few minutes early for the next session for a chance to win a prize. There's a few resources there. Have a look around Moodle, and we will see you next session.
Right on time, Ken. Well done. And just for Lex, there's a full frontal of Graham.
Yeah, just Google Graham.
Yeah.
Graham road safety, because I don't know who would come up with that. Bye.
See ya.